Say hi to YouTube, everybody. Say hi to YouTube. That did not go as planned.
You boys like Mexico? Yeah!
Welcome back to Kurt. So, what we're going to be doing now is moving the fuel tank down. That shouldn't be a big deal, and this is probably going to be a part of a larger video. We are going to relocate this tank, but the purpose is so we can build the platform on the back that we're going to do, that I'm really excited about. So, we've got the muffler off, and as you can see, this tank is ridiculous. And this is going to be cut down to here, and it's going to have a flat deck up here that's going to be all of that. So this is going to be pretty rudimentary. There's no real reason to keep this on. I've got the petcock turned off. I'm going to pull off this fuel line, including this bracket here. It doesn't need to be there. And I'm going to pull the tank off. I'm going to take this bracket off here, and I'm probably going to cut these probably right here. And I'm going to finish bending these to a 90 because the tank has to actually move forward and up about that much to clear where the seat bolts on. So that's what we're going to do now. These are just some 7/16 half-inch bolts. So no, those 7/16, and that's a 5/16, whatever. So we're going to pull these brackets off, get this tank off of here, and then we're going to start looking at these brackets. And this metal's all fine, but I'm looking at probably cutting these off and bending them so they work, and then we'll just make another bracket here that bends and moves over. So let's get started on this one. What I've decided to do for the bracket on this, you might have seen me point out that little bracket that was mounted right here. It was mounted here, and it went over and like had a weird, and that was one of the things I took off. Well, I was looking at it, and what I found is that the very slight rebending of it, it would do this and mount into the factory hole and put the tank right where I wanted it. So I cut like 2 inches off and I drilled it to see if it would work. And I'm only putting 1/4 inch bolts in this, thereabouts. I have some metric bolts that I've had that are like gold. And I don't know whether they're like, they're coated with something, see? Well, I've got a ton of these from where I've taken them off of my other cars and replaced them with other stainless hardware. So I'm going to take a couple of those bolts, and since I'm liking all these different colors, because we got the blue, and we're going to do the aluminum stainless plate later, and now the copper muffler, like I like all these colors, and the eventual color of the cart frame itself when we get around to it. So what I'm currently doing when I'm talking to you is looking for another one of those gold bolts, and I know where I have more of them. So I have bags of those bolts, because everything I own is metric, so I've just got, like, they're everywhere. So anyway, you don't need to see me fumble around looking for stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 of those bolts. I'm going to bolt the tank to this bracket. I've got my grinder out, and I'm going to wire wheel most of the paint off, so this is ready to paint, but we're not going to get to that yet. I want to have most of the cart, I want to do the build on it first, and some other things to it before I actually make it pretty. I want to see it running and performing the way I want it to before I take it to race in, I think I've got like 7 weeks. 6 if I go to the test and tune with it, which is what I prefer to do. And I know that's more than enough time for most people, but I'm not most people. And I got to get this thing done. So instead of keeping you on camera while I'm fumbling around looking for these bolts and have to go get my box of bolts out, since I clearly don't have another one in here readily available, that's what we're doing now. I'm going to wire wheel this real quick. And then the next thing we're going to do is, and I've already made a part of a cut so I know my spot. I'm gonna actually cut this arm off like I said. There's no point of that being on. I don't need a hand throttle. And I did remove this bracket that was right like this, that was holding the old muffler on, and I'm gonna repurpose this bolt to hold the tank, but we're gonna get there. So I'm gonna find the bolts real quick, and I'm gonna cut this off so it clears the petcock. And I want to leave a little bit there so I can drill a hole in it, like I said, and I want to use a spring to help, a throttle return spring. So that's what I'm gonna do real quick. Cut this off, get a bolt, and we'll come back to mounting the tank back here and taking some looks at the front bracket. It's mounted where I was wanting. I still have clearance here, and if I ever have to scoot the engine up to adjust the chain, I have some 1/4-inch spacers I can put in here from seat mounts, just temporarily, and stuff like that. Like I can work around it. So what I'm gonna do for the front is I'm gonna get my level, and that's holding it level. And I'm gonna make a bracket that goes from this bolt here. I'm gonna just bend it in the vise, and it's gonna literally come up and support the bottom of the tank. And I'm hoping I can get it bent where the tank will literally sit on it. And I can either Gorilla Glue, or I don't think epoxy will work. I think Gorilla Glue will be best. A little small piece of rubber so it doesn't chafe the tank, and then bolt it here for solid, and it won't go anywhere. I mean, it's more prone to twist a little bit side to side, but it's going to be supported good enough this way, and I don't think it'll be a problem. If it ends up being unstable with just this little 2-post bracketing thing that I'm building, I'll just end up making another small one that comes and bolts to here, because I'm going to bolt the guard for the clutch and torque converter in these 2 holes right here anyway, so it won't be a big deal. So I'm going to get that piece of metal that I have, because I keep almost all pieces of metal over 3 or 4 inches long, and I'm going to start bending it in here. And this is basically just going to be a bend it, test fit it, bend it, test fit it, etc., etc. So that's the plan for the foreseeable future right now, and we'll come back when I get something figured out. So this is what I've come up with. Took me several bolting it on, taking it off, rebending it, etc., etc. So the way it fixes on here, I'm going to show you, and it does clear the throttle linkage, already checked. It's going to bolt on just like that. And I'm going to get a little piece of rubber after I paint this. I'm most likely going to paint it blue to match the tank, but I'm going to paint it, and I'm going to put a piece of rubber there, like I said, because the tank does sit on it, and I don't want it to chafe or cause a rattle. So I'm just going to bolt it all on temporarily, because like I said before, I want this thing functional, and then we'll make it pretty. I mean, I'm wire brushing as I go and trying to clean it up a little bit as I go, but before I do a real go over with aesthetics, I want it to function. So I'm going to put the bolts back in here, and then we're going to deal with the fuel line, and that will be basically it for remounting this fuel tank. And the next project we probably ought to do is making this chain guard on here. Look at that, where it rubbed on the tank before and where it bent. But all right, so that's what we're gonna do now, and I'm gonna go get that piece of aluminum plate, and we're gonna look at bending it and bolting it on. That shouldn't take but 5 minutes. We'll probably tack that on the end of this video, and then the next big project is going to be right up there. Ta-da! It's sturdier than I thought it would be. I put a washer underneath the petcock to index the petcock the correct direction. It was aimed in, but I've indexed it so when I tighten it, it comes straight out. And I shortened this old fuel hose. I'm gonna have to hit up my Ford Ferry Marky Mark and get about a foot of, I guess it's 3/8 fuel hose, and get like a foot of that. And I've been thinking about it, and what I think I'm gonna do for that muffler is, I know this is the wrong video for that, but I think I'm gonna paint the bottom of the muffler like a satin black, like just to hide my ugly from like here down. Just this part I'm gonna do black, let the rest copper, and I think it'll blend in with the engine better. And I don't want to paint anything more on the engine. I want to get the blue cleaned up, and this will be going away. But if I don't get a clear cover, and I think I want a clear cover, they're not expensive. Instead of worrying about painting that one, I kind of want a clear cover. But now that that's done, we are back to running. And I mean, other than the muffler being off, but now that that's mounted, let's go ahead and move down to here, and let me get that piece of aluminum plate and see where we are about mounting that. It shouldn't take much. Okay, so here's the side of the torque converter. We recognize it. So this is that piece of aluminum plate that was mounted up here. It was like this under the fuel tank that I just took off, and I didn't know how to repurpose it. Didn't want to just throw it out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get it cleaned up, and it's aluminum, so it should clean up okay, despite there being some overspray paint and some transfer rust and some what looks like mildew. But I put a 90 bend in it just to see, and there's these two holes right here, and my camera's not aimed right for this. Hello. Right up here. And the goal is basically something like this, and it won't drag. And then I'm going to put another 90-degree bend about midway through and let it hang down to cover the torque converter. So I'm going to take some measurements real quick and see where this bend needs to be. And we're going to go ahead and bend it down to give us enough clearance here. And when we cut back, I'm going to have at least this one bolt in, and I'll drill a hole in it here. And I'll get at least the one bolt in, and then all that will really be left is making a spacer here to run a bolt through there in this plate. It looks like we need about a 1-inch spacer, so we might be able to do that with a longer bolt and 2 nuts, but we shall get there when we get there. And this will be the end of this particular video. We've got this set up, and this is the end of this part of the project. So the plate is now on right where I want it to be. As you can see, I put a 45 on there just to shield down. It stays inside the lines of the cart itself. We're not rubbing anywhere. I can almost get a finger between the pulley. I need to get a light so you guys can see that better. I got an aluminum spacer in here that I had laying in the toolbox, and put a 2-inch bolt that fit the threads. I had to chase the threads in this bolt hole. I don't know what was wrong with it, but I had a leftover bolt for that. So as you can see inside, we've got plenty of clearance, and it'll keep stuff from getting on here. Obviously I'm going to clean this up. It's like midnight 30, and I don't need to be turning my grinder on or my wire wheeler anymore, but I'm going to cut these corners off here like this just to neaten this up. And I'm going to wire brush this and polish it till it's as shiny as that stuff over there. So like I said, this is basically it for this project right now, this part of the project. All of this was for the next project, which is going to just be up here, and that's going to be a little bit more involved, a lot more fabrication, and some might say a bastardization of what this cart is for in the actual frame of the cart. But that's already been screwed up with this. Like, that's worse than my crap. That's far worse than my welding. But anyway, this is about where we're at for here. So like I said, this is this is basically done. Like, I'm not going to film cutting it off and polishing it up. You'll just see that later in the videos. The tank has been mounted and it's firm. We made this bracket here and we modified this one that was up here. Don't know what it was actually for. We've actually reused almost everything. Like I said, that bracket was up here. This was bolted up here. You can see in the earlier videos. This fuel line is going to be replaced. It's extremely old and brittle, and it needs a much more live hose here. Ford Ferry's going to be getting another visitation from me. And over here, like, I know this is messed up too. I might end up replacing this throttle cable. I don't know for sure yet. We will see. At the very least, it needs to be tendered differently, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to order a new cable that's not like this choke cable, that's a more standardized cable for this, that's sleeved better, that's not going to bind so much. And anyway, that's it. I could ramble on all night. So that's pretty much it for this section of the project. The next video on Kurt is going to be up here with some more extensive modification to fit my overall plan. So we'll see you guys when we get to that. I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably gonna start that tomorrow. This is the part I've been really excited about, and that's where that diamond plate's gonna come in. So we've got a lot of work to do. Like, we've just now got this to some basics that it needs to be down to, and now the fun stuff can begin. So until next time, bye-bye.
Bart?
Shout out to Ian for driving me. Say hi, Tyler.